We've all been there. Your students get 100% on their weekly spelling test, and then the following Monday, they're misspelling the same words in their writing. What happened? The problem is that traditional spelling instruction often relies on short-term memorization rather than long-term understanding. Today, I'm sharing 7 common teaching spelling mistakes to avoid. If you're new here, my name is Anna Geiger. I'm the author of Reach All Readers, creator of the Reach All Readers course and podcast, and I'm here to help you understand and apply the science of reading. Let's jump right in with mistake number 1. Creating personalized spelling lists based on student errors. Back in the early 2000s, I attended many conferences and read many books, which encouraged me to develop individual spelling lists for each of my students, watching for words they misspelled in their writing or simply words they wanted to learn to spell. It sounded good. It felt personalized and responsive, even though it also sounded like a logistical nightmare. But when we choose words for spelling instruction that don't follow a scope and sequence, we're likely to miss critical phonics patterns or morphemes. In addition, when words are unrelated, either by phonics pattern or meaningful unit, we're teaching our students to rely on memorization instead of learning how the spelling system works, which is what actually leads to spelling improvement and growth. Mistake number 2 is choosing spelling words that don't match your phonics lessons. At least through first grade and probably through much of second grade, we want the words that we choose for our spelling instruction to align with the phonics instruction that we're giving, not words pulled from our amphibians unit in science. If you're teaching the VCE phonics pattern, your list could include words like grape, dime, stroke, flute. Yes, first graders need to learn what amphibian means, but that word probably doesn't belong on their spelling list. Even if you choose to include challenge words for students who are ready for them, don't just give them words as lists of letters to be memorized. A-M-P-H-I-B-I-A-N. Take the time to examine those words together. The sounds, the spellings, the meaningful parts. Understanding why a word is spelled the way it is makes it more likely for the spelling to stick. Take that word amphibian, for example. Don't teach students to memorize the list of letters in a row. Show them the parts. A-M-P-H-I is from the Greek. It has to do with the idea of both kinds. B-I means life, and the suffix is an, which we find in many words, like the word American. Amphibian refers to the class of animals with life cycles that occur in both water and land. These animals, like frogs and toads, begin life in water and mature on land. Mistake number 3 is expecting students to discover spelling patterns on their own. This is exactly what I did as a balanced literacy teacher. I would give students words to cut apart and sort. I asked them to figure out why we would sort the words in a particular way. And once I approved their columns, they would glue the words into their composition notebooks. I thought that having them discover the pattern on their own was better than me just telling them, and that it would lead to longer learning. I should have just told them. Students benefit from direct instruction. We should teach each new spelling pattern explicitly and explain when to use it. Mistake number 4 is skipping spelling rules or teaching the wrong ones. Spelling rules, sometimes called patterns or conventions, are worth teaching, but you need to be selective. The rules need to be reliable. Take that familiar rule that many of us learned in our childhood. When 2 vowels go walking, the first one does the talking. That rule is false more than half the time. Let's focus on rules that actually help students improve in their reading and spelling. Some of the most important spelling rules to teach are the suffix spelling rules, sometimes called the doubling, E-drop, Y to I, and no change spelling rules. These govern what happens when you add a vowel suffix. So for example, with the doubling rule, if the base ends with a CVC syllable, so consonant, short vowel, consonant, then we're going to double that final consonant before adding a vowel suffix or a suffix that begins with a vowel. So for example, if we're changing hop to hopped, we're going to double that final P because HOP is a CVC syllable. The E-drop rule tells us that if a word ends in the VCE pattern, as in hope, before we add the vowel suffix, we're going to drop that final E before adding the ending. So if we change hope to hoping, we'll drop the E before adding that vowel suffix. The Y to I rule is a little bit different. It tells us that if the base ends with a consonant plus Y, we're going to change the Y to an I before adding any suffix except one that begins with an I. So for example, if we're changing cry to crying, we're going to keep that Y the same. But if we change cry to cried, we're going to change the Y to an I before adding the ED. Mistake number 5 is one I've made far too often, and that is telling our students that English spelling is crazy. It's true. English spelling can feel random, inconsistent, and crazy. But it only feels that way when we think that spelling is simply speech written down. Anything that doesn't match the sounds we say feels irregular. But English spelling is about much more than phonology, the sounds. It also communicates meaning. Take the word does. If we were relying only on phonology, we would think that does is spelled D-U-Z. But does is simply the base D-O plus the suffix es. It's the present tense form of do. The word goes follows the same pattern. Go plus suffix es is rewritten as G-O-E-S. Yes, the pronunciation is different between the bases of these two words, but the spelling pattern is consistent. When you understand that English spelling reflects 3 systems working together, phonology, the sounds, orthography, spelling patterns, and morphology, meaning units, it makes a lot more sense and feels a lot less chaotic. Mistake number 6 is something that many of us probably experienced in our childhood and is probably happening in many classrooms still today. And that is when teachers assign a list on Monday, test on Friday, and there's nothing in between. I'm not opposed to spelling lists, but I am opposed to giving words to students to memorize and then testing them on Friday and thinking that that is actually teaching spelling. That's not spelling instruction. There's no teaching happening. And we're sending students a message that spelling is all about visual memory. That if they stare at words long enough or memorize a string of letters, the spelling will stick. As Louisa Moats explains, the primary mechanism for learning to spell words is not visual memory. It's orthographic memory. This understanding of how letters come together to spell words is developed in tandem with an awareness of a word's internal structure. Its sounds, syllables, meaningful units, and history. It's a linguistic process, not primarily a visual one. Finally, mistake number 7 is using practice activities that rely on memorization. Writing a word 5 times each. Rainbow writing. These practice activities can treat spelling as a memorization task rather than a language task. Meaningful spelling practice looks different. Spelling dictation, sound mapping, word ladders, writing word sums using word matrices. These activities engage students with the actual structure of words, which is what builds lasting orthographic memory. So there you have it, 7 spelling mistakes to avoid and what to do instead. If you want to learn how to give your students effective, research-based spelling instruction, you're invited to my workshop, Spelling Instruction That Sticks. You'll walk away with tools and strategies you can use the very next day with your students. You'll find the link to register below this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.